It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
What's up, my spooky friends? I'm MJ, the host of Slashers in Sync, and I hope everyone is having a wonderful morning. Unfortunately, Marva won't be on today's episode due to feeling a little bit under the weather. She'll be back on next week, and that's going to be a fun topic because it's not just a movie review and it's not a movie ranking. It's actually something we've never talked about on the podcast before, so I cannot wait for y'all to hear that episode. It's something that's been talked about for like decades, and we're going to give our input on it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I cannot wait for y'all to hear that. Today though, I'm going to be discussing and reviewing 1982's The Slumber Party Massacre, also known as the Slumber Party Murders in the UK. As in the name, Slumber Party Massacre is a slasher film produced and directed by Amy Jones and written by Rita May. It is the first installment in the Slumber Party Massacre series, which is somewhat interconnected to the Sorority House Massacres and also the Cheerleader Massacre films. It's like a whole huge amalgamation of like films, which I believe like the first 4 or 5 being produced by, I believe his name is Roger Corman. Yeah, Roger Corman. And they're also notable for having the first, like, I think 3 to 4 films all being directed by women, which was pretty cool at the time, especially in the 80s, 90s, and then the early 2000s. So super cool. And I only say that just because a lot of slasher films, you know, especially in the 80s, were known for being very misogynistic and just, you know, people looked at those films for being very campy and all about sex and all about girls. So to have an actual woman directing these and I guess just kind of setting the tone for the film is what helps this movie a lot, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So this movie had a budget of about $220,000 and it did make about $3 million in the box office. What's interesting about that budget number though is that's very similar, if not pretty close, to the Halloween 1978 budget. And so when you're watching this movie, it is set in Venice, and that's Venice, Los Angeles, and California. So for those who don't know, and it feels like it's not really set there. Now, I didn't do like thorough research on this to find out if it really was set in Venice, but it just doesn't seem like it. Very similar to like other films where they kind of create the setting for you, but I could be wrong. Maybe it is Venice. That's just what it looked like back in 1982. But overall, you can kind of see the limitations of the budget on this movie, but I don't think that hurts it just because of the type of film that it is, especially with the comedy that it has. It really brings like an extra oomph that a lot of slashers didn't have at that time. And that is in part to, I think, Amy and Rita, and also just the comedic elements that this film has, because this was originally supposed to be a parody, if I remember reading that correctly, that it was written and shot as, or like written as a parody. And then when it was shot and made, you know, I don't think the people other than the writer and director knew that it was supposed to be that way. So at the end of the day, this film ended up being like marketed and shown off as a very serious slasher, and that caught everybody off guard, especially me. Like, here I am just trying to look for a movie to watch on Amazon Prime. I come across this, and I had heard instances and little just remarks about the massacre films. Because think about it, like, that's the type of title of a movie that you hear about, like in Disney Channel or like on Nickelodeon. Like, you're watching some Disney Channel show like That's So Raven, and you'll hear somebody come in and say, let's watch a horror movie Friday night about the, I don't know, cheerleaders go missing massacres, or like just some random name that you know they're poking fun of and making a parody off of. And this just sounds like that. And I wasn't expecting to like this as much as I did. Now, I have seen movie 2 as of this recording. I'm not going to talk about that until the next episode. But movie 2 is even on a different level that I feel like if I was probably on shrooms, I would have just been in a different world watching a movie like that. But as far as the first film goes, it is somewhat grounded, but it does have that elements of comedy because of the fact that it was a parody. And I think that's what makes this movie special. And regardless of the budget and regardless of where this movie is set, and even regardless of some of the acting, that's, I think, what pulls you in. And that's why this movie franchise has like 6 films and like 4 different remakes or reboots. So we get the cold open of Venice and we see the house of our main character named Trish. We also get the title card as well, Slumber Party Massacre. And we see this, I guess, newspaper just get thrown by the paperboy. And it mentions that a mass murderer has escaped and his name is Russ Thorn. And then we get to Trish, and this is an interesting scene because it's not like it's a 10-minute long scene or something, but it feels like a minute. And it's really just Trish waking up from her, from bed and just walking around and getting undressed as she's walking around and just like moving around in her room. And you do see some skin. My thing about this movie is you are going to see a lot of that. Like there's titties everywhere in this movie. And I believe that's been talked about over time in interviews and stuff like that with Amy and a few of the women who worked on these movies. And it's like, that's what the studio wanted. And some women were given the okay that if they didn't want to strip, that they didn't have to. If they didn't want to show anything, that they didn't have to. And there's even some in this movie that, you don't see them get undressed or nothing like that. And they've even talked about that, the actresses over time. And not to say like I'm praising that. I just feel like I'm happy that people did get their, a say in the matter. But I'm not going to lie, this movie does have a lot of naked women, and these women are supposed to be like 17 years old. So just be warned when you're putting this movie on, because like I said, it's everywhere in this movie, and it did catch me off guard. We then find out that Trisha's parents are leaving town. And of course, leaving her the house, and she's going to have the house to herself. And to somewhat of her surprise, Trish is not fully alone because they did leave their neighbor, Mr. David, in charge of her, and he does have to constantly check in on her while her parents are away. Now, when I watched this movie, I did think this dude, Mr. David, was going to kind of turn into somebody that is sketch and that, you just don't really want to vibe with or trust, and that really isn't the case, and I was happy to kind of see that play out through this film. We then skip over to the school, and we see these guys, Jeff and Neil, which are essentially the boys of this friend group, or at least the boys that Trish and her friends know of and hang out with, I guess. They are your typical 1980s pervs. You can't get away from an 80s slasher film without having 2 guys and all they're thinking about is just fucking the entire weekend. So they're here and they start hitting on a woman who's obviously older than them. I believe she's like not even a part of the staff of the school. She's actually working on something at the school. She might be like a repair woman or an electrician or something like that. And they make a pass at her in this interesting fashion. She's kind of going for it as well, especially with Jeff and Neil actually helping her put her things back in her van and everything. But of course, they get turned down. I believe she mentioned something about like her just being too old for him and whatever. And they go their separate ways. But right as Jeff and Neil are leaving, she opens the door to her van. And yeah, someone's in there. And yeah, it is Russ Thorn, the mass murderer who has escaped. And we get a very similar scene to like Scream 2 with Randy, where this electrician, this woman is just getting killed and the van is just shaking, and then there's like music playing, I believe, so the guys don't hear her screaming as they're walking away. So that is the first kill of the movie, this poor electrician who was just doing her job. But yeah, Russ is now a part of this film. We have seen him and he's already doing his thing. And keep in mind, he's doing his thing with a drill. We then do a hard cut over to a, I guess, PE session or gym session for school where we get introduced to the rest of the friends. We get introduced to Kim, Jackie, and Diane, I believe. Also, Jeff and Neil were just there watching the girls play basketball too. Again, creepy pervs, and supposedly not the first time that they've done this. And we also get introduced to Valerie, who is, I can't remember if it was mentioned that she was a new student there, or for some reason she's just really good at, it seems like, everything, going off of the shit talk that Trish and her friend group do about Valerie. But Valerie's like good at everything, right? She's smart, everyone loves her, she's pretty, and she is good at basketball, even better than like this main friend group. And again, I don't remember if she's new or if she just doesn't vibe with them and they've known each other for a long time, but either way, she's the one tearing it up on the court. And in usual movie fashion, they're really not tearing it up on the court, but you're supposed to believe that they are. We also get introduced to their coach. I believe her name was Rachel, or Coach Jana. And then again, like I said, this movie has a lot of titties. There's a lot of skin everywhere. We get this shower scene where they're cleaning up, getting ready to go back to class and stuff. And yeah, just there was casual conversation amongst this whole scene. I'm just not really gonna get into it. Like, I'm not gonna hold you. As I was watching this, I had it playing up loud so I can hear it, but I did kind of turn away just because, again, not the most comfortable. Especially when like you don't know if some of these girls were even, borderline around that time. A lot of movies from back in the day had that issue, so it is what it is. But once we get past the shower scene and everything, we get, again, some more shit talk about Valerie, and to where they think that maybe they should invite her over to the slumber party. And some of them don't want that to happen because they don't like her. But Trish says, fuck it, I'm going to go ahead and invite her. She goes over, but Valerie thinks it's a pity offer. So Valerie declines the offer. And that's when they kind of put it together that, okay, she probably heard them. She was just one locker over. So, and they weren't whispering this shit talk. So it's pretty obvious that Valerie probably heard them. And it makes sense for her to decline the offer. Because plus, I feel like in a lot of movies, when you invite the girl that you don't like, or you invite the girl that is new, it leads to, pranks being pulled on them. And I don't know if Valerie maybe had that going through her head or not, but again, it makes sense. Like, if I had heard that in real life and then they came to invite me, I'd probably turn them down. I wouldn't want to be alone with them. If they're shit talking me right now, I don't want to be alone with them, especially like when you're younger, you don't have your own car yet or something like that. Like, you don't want to play around with that, essentially. And now we kind of see the whole friend group. We see Jeff, Neil, Diane, Kim, Jackie, Trish, and Linda, but Linda does not last long because as the friend group is leaving school, we see that Russ is still in that van. So I guess he's, Grand Theft Auto now, but I guess add that to the list, right? So Russ is watching them leave. So now we can kind of see Russ's focus on this friend group, right? Like, that's probably going to be his agenda, and that's what the movie's telling you. I will say there's a badass scene, though, where it shows Russ. And this movie doesn't have the best cinematography. Like, there's really nothing stand out to me. Even though the budget is similar to, like, Halloween 1978, it doesn't have, like, those fantastic shots or camera work. But there's this shot where he's in the van, he's looking through the side view mirror, and it flashes to the kids, flashes back. Now the mirror still shows him, but as it's panning, it shows the van, like him, what the driver's seat would be like, and he's gone. I thought that was like a really cool shot, and we kind of know where he's going. So Linda goes back to grab something. I believe she forgot like a book, and Russ begins to chase her pretty much all throughout the school, like some area in the classroom, the gym that we just saw where they were playing basketball, and then of course the shower and the locker room. And Russ is chasing her, and it's a pretty good chase scene. Even though we haven't spent that much time with Linda, like, it's hard to feel sorry for her, but she does end up getting killed by Russ. And again, with the drill, man, very crazy, I guess, weapon to use, especially in the era of big kitchen knives and machetes. And speaking of Halloween 78, we get this scene where I believe Courtney is being stalked, and she's kind of like the bitch of the friend group, but at the same time, everyone is still pretty cool with her. So it's kind of interesting about that dynamic. Like, there doesn't really seem to be too much of any issues with her, other than that she's pretty close with her boyfriend, who is Jeff, and they're kind of, they make fun of her for that, even though, again, she does come off like the rude one in the group. So she's being stalked, and it's for a good minute. While the car's coming up behind her, they're doing a lot of cool angles to make you think it's maybe Russ in the van, but it's not. It's her boyfriend Jeff comes up from behind her, and we get this interesting scene where she doesn't know it's Jeff, so she literally just hip tosses him, drops him to the ground, right? Like puts her leg right on him, and I'm just like, wow, okay, so this chick can throw down. She knows how to fight. And this dude's a really big guy. Like, Jeff's like at least probably 6 foot. And what's interesting is I thought we were going to see more of that, but we don't later on. So I thought that was interesting to kind of throw that in, that she kind of can feel when someone's behind her, right? Like, she knows something's off. And then not only that, but she actually knows a little bit of how to defend herself, that self-defense, but it doesn't really come into play later, which is interesting, but it was cool to see it here. I just kind of wish that maybe I did more with that. And then Jeff obviously wants to hang out with his girlfriend, telling her to skip the slumber party, like, let's just do her own thing. And again, even though she's the rude one, she's not gonna do that. She actually wants to show up and be there with the homegirls. So, and that's what I mean by this cast. Like, even though the acting and you can kind of see that the budget is showing, like, it doesn't really matter, because the way these characters are written is very likable. They talk like how you would actually talk, and I think that's one of the best things about this, because she isn't so cartoony as she's twisting her evil mustache about how to plot a way to destroy the evening with her friends so she can go, basically fuck her boyfriend. What she wants to do is actually show up and be there for them and be a part of this. And then maybe you can come through and I'll talk to them and see if it's cool if you can stay. Like, I feel like that's a very real life answer as opposed to a 1980s cartoonish slasher film. We then get a scene of Coach Dana going home, and I believe she has a construction going on. There's like a little tease with like a drill bit, just maybe teasing that Russ is lurking, but he's not really. And then we see that she's pretty much just going to stay home for the night. And I kind of wondered about this scene when I first saw it, just because it's like, why do we need to see this? And why do we care? But she does play a bigger part, and we'll talk about that when we get there. We finally skip over to Trish's place where she's making her rounds for the slumber party. And she's just cleaning up a little bit, and then she makes her way to the piano that I guess is in that house, and she starts playing it, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, man. Like, give us a little bit of personality, show us what these people can do, show us what they like. So the fact that she knows not just how to play the piano, but to play it well, I kind of got an idea of this person, right? I'm getting an idea of her character, even without like seeing her go to class and seeing her do anything, right? She's good at basketball, not as good as Valerie though. She's really good at piano, like, and she's somewhat of the leader of the group, maybe her and Courtney together. So you kind of get a good idea of who Trish is. And then you start to see her get a little freaked out because she's hearing things, something isn't right. You can tell someone's in the house, but that someone actually ends up being Mr. David, who ends up scaring her, but apologizes. And again, just super cool. Like, he was just there checking stuff out. He's going to leave now, and just securing everything for her, even like grabbing her some stuff as well. Like, I think he's even working in the yard for, these people. Like, he's a W neighbor, like, straight up. We then again cut back to Coach Jana, and she ends up, I think, breaking a glass while she's just preparing dinner in her kitchen. And obviously, when something like that happens, that's because you kind of know something is coming. If you believe in that superstition, if you believe in to look out for signs, something is probably coming your way. Just don't know what it is yet. We then cut over to Jeff and Neil, who are just kind of lurking in the streets, just again talking about women, talking about sex, talking about what to do for the weekend, and they decide to go crash the slumber party. Yeah, again, 1980s pervs, man. And as they're walking through the neighborhood, we see the electrician van, so we know Russ is in the area. And then we go back to Trisha's house where her and Mr. David are just chilling. I think she's even making him coffee. Again, you can tell like they're super close, and I respect that a lot. Completely different idea of what I thought was going to happen with this dude earlier in the film when we were introduced to him and kind of told about his role for the film. And then that's when her friends Kim and Jackie come through for the party. And they start talking about smoking weed and drinking, getting fucked up. And of course, Trish is trying to tell them that Mr. David is there. Can y'all stop it? And of course, he overhears all of this. But again, him being the W neighbor, he tells them, hey man, just don't tell them that I know about this and you're good to go. And again, respect, man. Super cool. Then we skip over to Valerie and how Valerie is gonna be babysitting her sister, Courtney. And I think I mixed up the names earlier, so I apologize about that. Courtney is the younger sister to Valerie. Diane is the person who can defend herself and has the boyfriend named Jeff. My bad about that. And this movie does something interesting where, and I actually think it was kind of ahead of its time when it came to this, like multiple protagonists, because Valerie is essentially like a main character in this movie. And you can tell that too. Like as you're watching it, you're getting main character energy from her, even though the movie started with Trish and the movie is taking place at Trish's house and it's Trish's friends and it's Trish's slumber party. But Valerie just kind of gives off just this like aura. And it's interesting because it's like, okay, so Trish and Valerie are the main characters. And the reason why I bring that up and why that's important is because, remember, this movie came out in 1982. So kind of ahead of its time, especially for the slasher genre and for the horror genre when it was somewhat still in its infancy back then. So pretty cool. And again, it's important because you kind of want to know who your main characters are because you kind of want to know who is expendable, right? You kind of know who's going to get killed first. You kind of know the characters that are going to get killed afterwards. And it's usually the main characters that have like the plot, I guess, energy or the plot power, right? Where they can kind of do anything. And Valerie gives that off as well as Trish. So it's very interesting that we have two different protagonists here at two different places and it's just unbeknown to the other. I think that's kind of dope. And we get like this banter with Valerie and Courtney because Courtney is at that age where she's learning new things and she's looking towards her sister, but her sister just kind of sees her as like the lovable little brat. So we get this banter back and forth and it's a cool dynamic. Like they actually are pretty cool characters. And it was cool that it was just those two carrying those scenes because there's no one else there. I actually found myself enjoying those scenes and the dialogue from them. And this is for like everybody too though. So not to go too crazy on that because the dialogue at the slumber party was also cool as well. Like these are real girls just having fun, right? They're just chilling. They're just talking shit, smoking weed. It's very similar to like watching a TV show. But the difference with the TV show is that you're with these characters for a long time, right? Like you've seen them for like multiple episodes already. It felt like the scene with them at the slumber party, specifically Jackie, Kim, and Trish, it feels like you're watching three main characters from a TV show 2 seasons in, where like they're talking about like what they're gonna do for the next dance upcoming and just like they're name dropping people. Like they're setting the universe up. Like they're setting the world up for you and it's easy for you to get immersed. And I think that's super cool. And it's obviously conversation that these girls would have, and I feel like that's probably one of the cool things about having not just a woman write this movie but also a woman to direct this movie. And then we see Diane make her way through, so she does come to the slumber party after all. We then skip over to Valerie and Courtney having some more banter. Courtney has to pretty much go to her room, and I think even before she goes to her room, she sneaks into Valerie's and steals some stuff from under her bed. So yeah, just a little bit of a side plot there for this film. And while Valerie's outside, I think taking care of some chores, she hears something. So again, to kind of remind you that even though this has a lot of comedy and a lot of dialogue, and it's still a slasher and there's still somebody in the neighborhood. We then cut back to Trish's, but this time from an outside perspective because Jeff and Neil are there and they are In fact, watching the girls change into their sleeping clothes, and again, more titties, more skin, and these guys are just being absolute fucking pervs. We get some cool dialogue with like Trish and Diane, and Trish ends up ordering pizza for the group, and Diane's tasked with going to go take care of some stuff outside. I think she needs to get like firewood or something like that. And then we see Mr. David come up and help her kill this bug on the wood. Again, W neighbor, bro. Like, he's always around. But not for long, because Russ is there and he kills Mr. David. So, yeah, so much for that parental guidance, I guess. So, Mr. David is gone. It's just the girls now. And I guess, of course, if you count Jeff and Neil, I believe it's, if I remember correctly, they actually heard it, but nothing really happens with that. They don't like go investigate or anything like that. And then again, some more banter with Valerie and Courtney. And I don't mean to say that as like it's boring. Like, it's just not really much to talk about, because it's just building up the relationship that Valerie and Courtney have. And you're seeing that play out a lot. And it is really cool, man. They do feel like sisters. They do feel like they've known each other for a long time. Like, the chemistry's pretty good. So I feel like it's dope. It's just not really much happens there because it's just those two characters. So that's why I'm not really like talking about it too much. We then cut back to Trish's, where Diane is taking a phone call from John and the girls are listening in. And this kind of goes back to what I said earlier, where even though Diane comes off like the rude one of the group, like the bitch of the group, they're still cool with her. They still love her. But they do clown her for having the boyfriend that she does. The power goes out, and that's when they freak out and they decide to go check out what happened to the fuse box. They go into the shed, or where everything's at, and they find out that even though it is spooky, it's scary, it's a slasher film, it was not Russ. It was Jeff and Neil trying to play a prank on them. I believe Valerie even noted that the power went out. I think the power outage might have affected her, either that, or she just so happened to be outside still when the power went out for Trish's house, so she caught that. And I think that's where we start to get a little bit of like Valerie wanting to find out, like, is something going on over there? Should she go investigate? Should she make a phone call over there? Because that does happen quite often throughout the rest of this film. So, yeah. John then pulls up, which is Diane's boyfriend, and, he's there to see, like, hey man, can I stay? Are you coming? What's up? And of course, Diane, still being the friend that she is, she doesn't want to leave them hanging, so she goes back to see if maybe something can be done about it. We then get this good scene of Valerie and Courtney just talking about life, talking about boys, and you can tell like they're really, just connecting. It's a really cool scene, and I think she's even doing Courtney's hair while they're talking as well. So again, super cool. It really does make Valerie likable, and it goes back to what I said, that she just gives off like that main character energy. It very much feels like she's the Laurie of this film, and everyone else is just kind of like the side characters, even though that's not necessarily the case. Diane's back, but this time she's in the car with John, and they are hooking up essentially. I think to the point where he actually wants to just, do it right there in Trish's garage in the car. So yeah, man, this movie's pretty horny. It's up there with the best of them. Diane's able to kind of tell him to hold off just a little bit, and she leaves to go talk to her friends. Of course, her friends clown her, but they kind of give her the green light, like, go ahead, like, nothing's gonna happen if you leave, even mentioning that she might come right back. So there's that, but that doesn't happen because John was killed by Russ. Russ finally makes another appearance after killing Mr. David, and yeah, he used the drill again, and he goes after Diane. Now, what's interesting is when Diane's out there, I believe someone's making like a mixed drink, so they're using the blender, and you cannot hear her screaming. So that was what they kind of used to, I guess, avoid the fact that they should be able to hear her, because like she's just right there in the garage, and the garage is open too, mind you, so the screams are not even concealed. But yeah, they were talking shit in the kitchen and also making a mixed drink with the blender, so they couldn't hear that. And I believe Courtney hears the scream, though, and that's when she alerts Valerie, and that's when, again, it picks up. Like, should Valerie go over there? Should she make the phone call? Like, what's going on? Now, the kill with Diane was pretty quick, a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be, and that was just because of what I said earlier, how she was shown to defend herself. I thought there was going to be a little bit more of a struggle there. That wasn't the case, and Russ gets his third kill, obviously. Now, this is a crazy scene. The rest of the group is just chilling and drinking, right? Now, the pizza that Trish had ordered earlier finally gets there. Now, Kim, I believe, is on the phone with Coach because she was talking to Coach Jana about something, right? And I think it was about basketball. And when they open the door, the pizza delivery guy just falls right in, right? And then this happens while Kim is talking to Coach Jana. So everyone just screams because this dude has been killed off screen by Russ. And of course, there's a hole in his head. Obviously, the drill was used again. And I don't know. I just find that so funny that it's a drill that's the weapon of this movie. I was not expecting that when I saw this. Yeah, I just found that to be pretty funny. Now, this is where the movie really starts to pick up because everybody is freaking out. They don't know what to do. They don't want to call the cops. But they do know that they need to get some help of some sort. I think that's when Jeff and Neil decide to like make a run for it to, go get help for the ladies and stuff like that. Plus, they want to show off a little bit too. You can tell that's the plan there. And they grab some kitchen knives and everything. And the plan is that one of them is going to go to, I believe, Mr. David's house. The other one's going to go to Valerie's house. Now, I believe one of them sees the body of Diane and gets freaked out, so he doesn't make it past the garage. And then that's when Russ gets him right then and there. And then the other guy makes it to Valerie's house. But as he's knocking on the door, Valerie is just watching TV. She's got that shit turned all the way up and she cannot hear homeboy. He's like banging on the door, screaming Bloody Mary, and he just cannot get her attention. Russ catches up to them, and it's this cool like looming shot of like Russ running like from a far away angle and just getting constantly closer and closer. And this kill is interesting because I believe this is the guy who grabbed the kitchen knife. So Russ actually doesn't kill this dude with the drill. They get into a little bit of a tussle. Like the dude just says, fuck it, like I'm not gonna survive, let me just attack him. So he jumps up at him. Of course, Russ, being the type of killer that he is, overpowers the dude. They go at it. They get into a little thing on the ground, and he starts stabbing homeboy like viciously with the knife, dude. Like it was a very horrifying kill, man, because he stabbed him a lot. Like that type of shit you would see like in documentaries about somebody having like a lot of rage for somebody else, right? Just stabbed him a lot. So he's dead. We then cut back to the other side of the house with Trish, and the girls are scared. They don't know what to do. Like they're waiting for somebody to come back, and that's where we find out that one of the guys is still alive. He was able to crawl to the door, and we get this very like somewhat of a sad scene where he's trying to get in. The girls want to let him in, but they don't know if it could be the killer, tricking them. And they listen to their friend get killed because Russ catches up to him and kills him for sure this time. And they're all listening in, and I'm sure they felt horrible about the fact that they couldn't, help their friend there. And it was a very sad scene. But then we cut to the city lights, and we see that Coach Jana is actually driving over to Trish's house because of that scream she heard over the phone. I'd probably be asking questions too now. Going over there, I'm not too sure. I'd probably call the cops to go check on them, but that's just me. I feel like the coach and them do have a very interesting relationship. Again, that it's just like they threw you into this story, and it makes you really immersed because they have such a cool relationship with their coach that they actually call her house phone, like on the weekends to talk about sports. Like that's cool to me. Of course, the girls are freaking out. They don't want to leave. They're hoping that everything's locked up, and Trish, I think, starts to kind of lose it a little bit, but not as much as the others. And then Valerie goes over to finally knock on the door and see if anyone's there. And of course, they don't answer in time because when they finally decide to answer the door, I believe it's Jackie who goes up to the door. She opens it, gets killed immediately by Russ. Russ then chases the other two girls up. They go and barricade themselves in Trish's bedroom. I believe Courtney and Valerie both go back because I think Valerie found out that Courtney had already left, so she wasn't at the house, and she was like on the other side of Trish's place trying to get in or to find out what was going on. So they both kind of meet up there. They're looking around Trish's house. I think they even get close to either the stairwell or or staircase, or they actually go upstairs because Trish and them can hear Valerie, but again, they just don't trust it. They're afraid to open the door because what if Valerie knows the killer? What if she is the killer? There's a lot of like interesting dialogue here that really makes you think and kind of shows the distress that these two girls are in after seeing their friends just get killed. But again, they don't go to the door. Valerie leaves, and Trish fucked up by leaving her bedroom window open. And Russ pulls up and he kills Kim, Trish's only friend. And I think Trish is able to knock him down just a little bit, and she's able to get out of the way and like go hide again. Russ then looks all over Trish's house looking for her, can't find her. We then cut over to Valerie, who finds Courtney in the middle of the yard, but it was just Courtney playing a trick on her. I actually thought for a second that they killed the younger sister, but that wasn't the case because they'd already killed the pizza guy, off screen. So I thought maybe Courtney might have been killed off screen, but nah. She was just playing a prank on her. They start joking around. They make it back into the house. And this is an interesting scene. So when they get to their house, they open the door to the fridge, and Kim, the one who was just killed in the bedroom, in Trisha's bedroom, is already in the fridge. Like a trophy kill. Like Russ had already put her there. That timing is a little weird to me. I don't know if that was in the original cut or if it was added in later, because the movie was shot, at least the ending of it, a little later because they wanted to spice it up a little bit and add an alternate ending. So I don't know if that was in the original cut or not, but the timing on that seems a little weird to me. Like Russ was able to get over to Valerie's house that quickly and put a body in the fridge before Valerie and Courtney made it home. Kind of weird. Of course, they see the body, they freak out, and they run into Russ, who is there. Courtney's able to hide and get away, but Valerie kind of faces him off a little bit before she finds the basement and barricades herself in her own basement. And she starts looking for a weapon, which I thought that's pretty badass. Like, she's going for the weapon immediately. We then see Coach Jonna come back, and then it looks like Russ was pretending to hide, like to ambush any of the girls that may come out at some point. But instead of it being one of the girls, it's Coach Jonna, and she actually gets into it. She kind of has like a little scuffle with homeboy, and she's actually knocking him around a little bit. Like you can kind of see like he's not messing around with some like teenager right now. Like this is a grown woman ready to survive and ready to kill if she has to. But before she can get the jump on him, I believe Courtney tries to help by grabbing or tripping Russ, but that actually accidentally leads to Coach Jonna's demise. And then we see Trish come running in, and she gets the jump on Russ too, but of course Russ is able to overpower her. And at this point, Coach Jonna is dead, and Trish is about to get killed. And you can tell that Russ has some sort of like infatuation with her because he starts talking to her, and yeah, like it's really like this dude is not right in the head. And then that's when Valerie comes up with the weapon. She starts wailing on homeboy. I think at one point the fight even leads to the pool, and she cuts off his hand, the one that he's been using for the drill this entire time. And they get into it. Trish gets back up, and she makes her way to help put Russ down for good. And it's a very cool scene with like Valerie and Trish coming together to take out Russ. And then that's when all the girls, kind of have like their individual breakdowns over what just happened, and then that's the end of the movie. Now, Slumber Party Massacre, I feel like I liked it more than I thought I was, even though the movie was originally written as a parody, and even though there's a lot of comedy, but that doesn't hurt it, man. I actually really fuck with this movie a lot. It's probably something I can go back and rewatch, and I'm going to be interested in watching the other ones. I've already seen movie 2, so that review will probably come in the future, and I'll probably do those alone just because Marva hasn't seen any of them yet, and I don't know if she'll watch them anytime soon, so I'll probably be reviewing those movies on my own, so you can expect that review in the near future. But man, yeah, Slumber Party Massacre, I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10. It's a very fun film, and movie 2 is even crazier, and even though it may not be the better movie in terms of everything else, I just feel like the visuals and which is how crazy it gets, it really gets up there as being like a fun watch. So I can't wait to talk about that. But let me know what y'all think about Slumber Party Massacre, and if y'all have even seen the films and other movies from the 80s that you would want me and Marva to check out. Anyways, thanks as always for tuning into the podcast. We appreciate every single one of you that listens, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.